across Australia today, on the 31st of August 2025, thousands marched against immigration. But what started as a healthy debate about housing and resources has been hijacked by extremist group and white nationalists. Today, I want to unpack why this matters and also compare it with South Africa's experience, where actually legitimate concerns around job and healthcare services and other public services in South Africa have also been twisted into xenophobia.
The crowds have many chants throughout the day during their march, including Send Them Back, Save the Nation, Stop the Invasion, Australia First, and more. Many were also chants against the Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, as you might be able to hear some of them behind me now. Some people who we spoke to were very quick to point out that this march is about being anti-immigration. It's about stopping the flow of what they describe as mass migration, and that it has nothing to do with race. This doesn't seem to be the view shared by everyone we spoke to, though.
I think we're being overrun by Indians and Muslims.
Yeah.
I'm not against migration altogether, okay? I'm just over the fact that we're bringing so many in at the same time.
Yeah.
And like she said, they're not conforming to our way of life.
Because you think it's a better country.
Yeah, they have to live the way that we live.
Even the event organizer and first speaker, Jesse Stewart, who is the husband of Beck Freedom, didn't shy away from the racial element to the discourse here at this march.
There is a clear global agenda to shame, beat down and replace people with Anglo-Celtic and European heritage. They want to turn our homeland into a multicultural economic zone that is completely conflicting with what the founders of this nation or what our ancestors had in mind for what they wanted to inherit to us.
In Australia, migration settings are clashing with deep housing crisis and stretched healthcare. So in South Africa, the migration, it's really very much the issue around South Africa's high unemployment and the influx of non-skilled migrant, aka undocumented or illegal immigrants that are getting through the border unregulated and creating these tent city mikuku housing, informal settlement, dangerous scenario for citizens. And there's an issue about identity as well that is tend to be a problem around people, unregulated, undocumented people that are live amongst you. It's a very dangerous scenario there in South Africa, but nonetheless, it still affects the citizens. The citizens are still impacted.
Illegal settlements, and I say that with inverted commas because I want to hear if that is your view, that they're informal, that they're illegal settlements. That for the most part, they are also inhabited by illegal foreign nationals. Those were your own words.
Yes. That's one thing that we did 2 months ago. I think we made news that we were joined by the Minister of Home Affairs, whom we wrote to on a number of occasions. We might have been competing with his diary, but we've been appealing to him that law enforcement from Home Affairs can be sporadic. It can be occasioned by the presence of the minister, but it should be a day-to-day activity that where there are illegal foreigners, Home Affairs must come into place and take its role, because we should house documented people that are in our country that are looking for economic opportunities. But if there are 60% that are foreign nationals, because if you look at the plastic view and symmetry view, most people that are residing in that informal settlement, they can't build permanent structures, they can't do anything. They are foreign nationals that are, most of them are undocumented. And that, hence we have made an appeal and a request through our executive mayor that the Minister of Home Affairs must work with us to make sure that we remove some of those that do not qualify, because it would be a futile exercise for us to plan knowingly that many that are there do not qualify to be housed in terms of grants and provisions that are in the Housing Act.
It is the view, though, of AfriForum's district coordinator for the Greater North that the city of Tshwane did actually managed to obtain an eviction order. So, I mean, can you clarify that for me? Can you confirm if that is true and why that has not been effected?
We do have efforts. We did have efforts to try and remove people that are in the plastic view and cemetery view. However, we had a challenge with human rights lawyers. They had to use the PI Act to then deal with our efforts to remove these illegal immigrants, because even United Nations came on board to say we shouldn't just dismiss everybody that is there. We must work with them to try and accommodate many of illegal foreigners that are there. But this is out of our hands because National Housing Act prohibits provision of houses to illegal immigrants, and we need collaboration with Home Affairs. In the last effort, we removed 90 of illegal immigrants that were taken away by Home Affairs. But I think collaboratively we can work together to make sure that the subs come on board, Metropolis come on board, and we do an operation that will see us making efforts so that those 800 opportunities, when they come, they will then be availed to people that qualify.
I just want to talk about just some of the challenges of what these settlements really have brought to the community. For instance, the issue of illegally dumped waste, just how extensive that problem is. I mean, we've been looking at the visuals of really what some of the dump sites, for instance, look like. Very worrying. And how it is that the city is trying to deal with that.
It put pressure. There are some that are doing recycling. I think a day or two ago, there was a fire that was started around people that are doing recycling because they collect everything. And that also deals with the degradation of environment. If you look at our streams, get to be polluted. Then there are a number of illegal activities that take place that we should avoid. Because the Royal issue, it is as a result of old infrastructure. But in other instances, it's an issue of polluting our streams because people do other activities, but they neglect our environment. Therefore, solid waste is a challenge. We have developed a policy to support recycling and reclaimers, but that should be done with people that conform to our rules and regulations of protecting our environment and ecosystem. Then it becomes a problem if people want to burn tires, people want to throw waste everywhere because they want to survive. We need coordinated economic activities that should be supported by government, and we are willing, because of local economic development is part of our 5 mandate or mandates that comes within the constitution of local government or convening activities that need to take place at local government.
Yeah.
And ensuring that recycling as part of supporting small businesses happens, we support, but that cannot happen and against our protection of environment and wetlands and part of the ecosystem.
Yeah.
So we really have to emphasize that both countries have real resources pressures that deserve a very careful, I'll say very careful debate about it. Because I spoke about this before about immigration in Australia, that is so high that the vacancy rate, it's about, last time I checked in Adelaide, was around 0.6 rental. That is crazy. And you can see when there's actually a vacancy property, how many people line up to actually view that property. And these renters are charged a lot of money for nothing really. For something like in the past, if you live in South Africa, your the house that you would regard as your closet, be your whole house, because you know how massive houses can be in South Africa. Yeah, that is how some of these houses, the way they charge these renters, it is shocking. And so having the migration issue is very important because if you bring in a lot of people and you do not have enough resources like housing for them in Australia, the issue is still housing. It's not around employment, it's housing. And unemployment is likely to creep up as well. But we're looking around housing itself. Housing, it's the biggest issue here. We're talking about the necessity, not yet, even a job. It's a necessity for people to get a job so they can pay their bills and feel really engaged in the community and contributing to their own community, and not to feel marginalized by their own government, which is the issue around South Africa, around employment of young South African, and to give them opportunity and training. So that also is still an issue in South Africa around this issue around unemployment that they're not addressing. And in South Africa, as you've heard the story that I've reported before at MzansiOz, Diary Justice Unmuted, is the issue around the the healthcare access for many of these people who are illegal. In South Africa, these people, immigrants, we're talking about many millions of them are illegal. All right, we're talking about millions of illegal people that the government doesn't know of them. Of illegal immigrants in Australia. Australia does also has their own problem with illegal immigrants. Thankfully for them, they managed it by changing the law. Like I said, Leon Schreiber is just bluffing. He's not doing anything that Home Affairs, and actually has turned South Africa's Home Affairs into an elite group. Now decide on which things to focus on rather than focusing on broadly Home Affairs. Uh, in Australia, illegal immigrations, it's not allowed, and you're not going to be settled in Australia if you are going to come here without a valid visa to come to Australia. So let's listen.
A secret trip to Nauru to solve a political headache back home. Australia parting with hundreds of millions of taxpayer dollars to resettle up to 350 non-citizens in the Micronesian nation. The so-called NZYQ cohort, many of whom have committed serious violent offences, were released from immigration detention in 2023 when the High Court ruled indefinite detention was illegal. Several have reoffended since being released. One faces a murder charge. Now, almost 2 years after the decision, Home Affairs Minister Tony Burke and Nauru's President David Adiyang have signed a memorandum of understanding, but the details are thin.
Remarkably, the Nauruan Parliament is getting more details, more promptly about this agreement than the Australian people, and it's the Australian people who are paying.
That secrecy drawing the ire of asylum seeker support services and lawyers.
When the Labor Party were in opposition, they were calling for greater transparency about Nauru. Now they're in government, they're actually implementing and continuing the very things they criticised.
The Albanese government will spend almost $70 million per year on ongoing resettlement costs, on top of the $408 million upfront payment to Nauru. Tony Burke's statement was simple. Anyone who doesn't have a valid visa should leave the country. The deal winning the support of the opposition.
We want to see as many of these people removed from our community. The Australian community comes first.
Cloaked in secrecy, the deal coincides with a controversial move to legislate to expedite the deportation of the NZYQ cohort. The government's hoping prioritising community safety outweighs questions of procedure.
So as you've heard, this is how Australia deals with illegal immigration. All right, it needs about the law change. And you need to have a secure border, South Africa. You need to build a secure border, a proper one, not a cattle fence, preventing cattle jumping into the road, like the one we were shown as the border between South Africa and Eswatini. Yes, because Eswatini has their own dangerous criminals from America being dumped there. So it's not going to get really well for citizens. They're on both, okay, in both in South Africa and in Australia, it's quite a different conversation about immigration. It's just that the resources aren't insufficient. As you've looked at that video, South African video now, look at that dump that they've created. And the human rights still fought that Tshwane municipality from actually evicting those people. The human rights people, they think those people should live there with pigs. Look how bad that place is. So I'm very concerned about this conversation we're leading. And I think healthy debate is needed on both sides, Australia and South Africa, because when the resources are stretched, the people who are going to suffer most are usually the vulnerable citizens. Vulnerable citizens are the one that are going to suffer, are the one who are going to be homeless for finding properties, are the one who not going to find affordable property to rent. When this thing called immigration in Australia, it's not control. It's not actually a break is not put into it. We need to put a break into it and start evaluating why we have so many skilled migrants that are driving Ubers and really look into that and look at it from a perspective of a healthy debate, not one of driven by white supremacists that derail a good discussions into a divisive stuff, which we've seen in all cases, even in South Africa. A healthy debate about identity that really people should be identified in healthcare facility is now being turned into people's dignity is being undermined. But really, the government should have thought about it. How are you going to identify these people? If we say healthcare is for everyone, fair enough, we agree. But how are you going to identify them and where's the money for them? That is the fair question to ask. It's not hard and it's not divisive. Resources must match with the people. Otherwise, you're harming the citizens. This is what you're doing. Citizens are getting squashed and squashed and squashed. You need to have a healthy debate, and we need to also to reject having this group entering this debate. If you see, even in South Africa, when you have these divisive groups that are hijacking movements, that healthy debate into something other than that, they're now going to make it even harder for government or to take you, all of us, seriously. That we really need to look into this housing for everyone that is working for all, including migrants. All right, migrants are there as well. Legal migrants in both countries are also affected by this issue. And thank you guys for listening. If you're new here, please consider subscribing. Until next time, see ya.